Okay, welcome to the really patronising airbrush video. So I've not really planned any of these through, so I'm just going to get going and we'll talk it through from there. So, one compressor plugged in inside. Speaking of ventilation, I like to do it outside as and when I can. If you're doing it inside, make sure you wear a mask. Not just for the particular paint, but also aerosolized flow improver is probably not very good for you. So unless you have some vapor filters, yeah, outside is good. On the note, flow improver, airbrush cleaner, do not get them mixed up, it will absolutely ruin your work. And there is a difference between flow improver and, what bloody hell is it called? Thinner. I bought mixed thinner and flow improver together. I think it was the cheapest thing on the market. Couldn't understand why my colours weren't very vibrant. It's because the thinner, gasp, thins your paint. Flow improver doesn't thin it, it just means it goes on smoother and doesn't clog the nozzle as much. So, top tip, get that stuff. Keep that stuff well the hell away till you need it. I'm just going to be priming some models for now, but the same theory goes for paint basically. So without further ado, let's get on with it. So, compressor's already turned on. Try not to get any kinks. And normally I have mine set to around 25-ish PSI. Yeah, 26-ish. Depends what you're doing. The closer to the work, the lower you want the PSI. For big coverage stuff, high PSI is great. However, if you blast it too fast, you'll start getting spider webs and smearing your paint, and you run the risk of putting too much on, depending on how good your control is. So, you've got a moisture trap at the bottom there, and another moisture trap here. Do use it, you'd be surprised. The longer the hose, the better, because hot compressor, cooler air, suddenly you'll start spitting water out, and you'll wonder why. So, in case you don't know, push it down. Is your air demand, pulling it back, moves the needle out of the nozzle and lets paint through to get atomized. On that note, I'll show you at the end when you clean it. Your needle is held in at the back here. You can see it gets moved backward and forward. If I show you very quickly, when you have fluid in the top, like that, if you block the end off with your finger and give it air, see there's no bubbles, and as I pull back it opens the nozzle and you get bubbles. That's good for clearing paint out of the nozzle. I'll show you that later on, and I usually do it before I start spraying as well. However, if when you just put air down, if you get more than the occasional bubble, it means your needle's not quite seated properly. If that's the case, wind off that nut, pull out your needle, be really careful. If you nudge that, it'll be no good, you'll need to buy a new one. So really carefully when you put it in there, he says. You need to snug it down, but don't push it too hard, because you'll flare out the nozzle and you'll get gaps again. So just nice and gently snugged on. Back it off, and hopefully you're good to go. Right, golden rule of airbrushing is air on, paint demand as much as you need, but when you're finished you must rock it forward first to shut off the paint, then let go of the air. If you don't, if you give it air, paint, and then let go, the paint gets stuck in the nozzle, apart from the fact that it will dry and you'll really struggle. The next time you then just press air, it will jet out all that paint, quite possibly ruining your model. On that note, whenever you start, give it air demand, then come onto your model. That way, anything that is going to spit out gets spat wherever your catchment area is, not on your model. Okay, we've got a utility brush, not a nice brush. This one is a scratty old thing that I use for mixing stuff. Really, really handy. I'm sure everyone's got their own rules and mixtures and whatnot. When it comes to primer, well, for a start, put your flow improver in first so that it sits at the bottom of the hopper. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. I like to go sort of 1 to 3-ish. It's really hot outside, and we'll see how it goes. Two and a bit to 1 because my primer is playing up and I'm nearly out, which isn't great. And then I like to just put a little bit of water. You're meant to use ionized water. I don't, just a couple of drops on the side. It'll be fine. The flow improver means that it'll smooth it out anyway. Give it a mix in your hopper like that. Try not to waste as much paint or as little paint as you can. then, as I was saying before, finger over the end, air on, and then don't pull it all the way back, you'll get a face full of paint. You see it bubbling to the top, like that. And then a quick test. Normally I do that onto my big spray box, but I'm working outside today. I can see that that's giving paint. And then simply air on, point away. I should have done that first, to be honest. Air on, and then very gently pull back. See, I'm giving it paint. Now there, it's just starting to get a little bit too shiny. I put a little bit more paint on than I wanted. If you're not careful, you end up with pooling, and then the next time the air hits it, it'll smudge everywhere and you get spider webbing. That's not what you want. You can always go back and give it some more. Less is more. You want a couple of inches away again. It depends on how much paint you're giving. It depends on how much air you've got, and there's a sweet spot. I'm sure everyone's got their own methods. This is what I use. And I'm constantly keeping the air on, but I'm working the paint flow to get what I want and no more. Off and on, off and on. Now, one thing that you will find, and it will happen, is tip dry, and just there that happened. So as I'm pulling back, nothing was happening, and what's happened is you've got a little build-up of paint in there. What you can do is, again with air on, just give it a full max chat burst very quickly. It'll blow it all out and hopefully clear your nozzle. So, like that. There you go, I've got paint again. If that doesn't work, what you need to do, and what I should have done before I came out here, was get a Q-tip. Just a couple of drops of airbrush cleaner on the end of the Q-tip, put it very gently onto the nozzle, and I mean carefully, because the last thing you want to do is bend your needle. Straight onto the needle, give it a twizzle, pull it off, and then again, very important, blast of air, blows away any cleaner and evaporates it. Otherwise, you're putting cleaner directly on your model, and obviously that's going to ruin your model. So, that's mostly it. There's no great secret to it, other than it's a really hot day and I'm getting tip dry quite bad. What I could do is put a little bit more flow improver in there to see if it helps, but eventually you'll dilute your model, even though it says it doesn't. Obviously, if you put enough flow improver in, it will do. Yeah, it's definitely a warm day. There we go. And go a little bit more mad with the base. So I'm not so worried, I just need to get some primer on there. One primed model. And airbrushing is great for priming. I've probably saved the cost of the compressor just in rattle cans of primer. Love the stuff. So I'll keep going on all these, and then I'll come back to show you changing colours and whatnot. Okay, so that is my models all primed, so I'm now going to go on. It says that. Let's just... helps if you turn the compressor on. Let's try that again, shall we? So that is our models all primed. I'm now going to put some zenithal grey on there, which means I'm going to change my colour. As it is, the hopper is very nearly empty. I'd normally do this at the kitchen sink with some running water because it's way easier, but since I'm outside, all you're doing to start with, use some water, tap water's fine, to mostly clear out the hopper. No great majesty. That's not even a thing, is it? No great secret to that. Now, you'll be amazed. I mean, yes, there's still some in the hopper there, so let's get rid of that. Just to show you, that looks to all intents and purposes clean. If I put some clean water in there, again, blowback method, so over the end, give it air, and as you pull back, look at the amount of crap that came out of there. That was all still in the nozzle. Now, because we're only changing colours, you don't need to go mental and clean it perfectly, just so that when you blast it out, you're getting clear water out and not paint. So usually a piece of paper is fine, or your hand or whatever. That's fine. And I usually give it a shake just to get those few bits of water around. So that's completely dry. Now we can move on to the next colour. I'm using game ink. Well, I'm using inks, should I say plural, but paint, it doesn't make any odds. Same thing, and again, with inks being thinner, you don't need much in the way of flow improver. See me double check there that wasn't cleaner I was putting in. Great. Where's my pin gone? There it is. Use dropper bottles, they said. It'll be better, they said. Ha! And then exactly the same again. A couple of drops of water. Mix it in there, which is good, that's what I'm after, a dark grey. Pull it up the sides. Clean your brush. Blowback method. Perfect. Now here I'm simulating light, so I'm coming in at a low angle, really gently. I don't know how well you'll see that on film, but that's what I'm after. Again, working the paint demand off and on, and if ever you let go of the air, make sure you push your paint forward first. You do not want paint supply when you stop your air. So dark, slightly lighter, and I'll go back over that with white now and just hit it from one particular angle and that'll be perfect. So I'll keep doing that and I'll get back to you with that. Okay, so I just realised that doing the white on the zenithal is probably a lot better on film than just doing grey on black. So just to show you, putting on the air before I touch the model, pointing at my hand like you saw, and I'm only doing a few mil of feathering. There's very little on the. As soon as I feel it start to move the needle, I'm just very slightly feathering it to get the effect I'm after. I'm building it up in lots of little layers. No need to go hitting it with massive amounts of paint. Just keep going over it. The advantage of doing it gently like that and doing many layers is that if you're not 100% sure of where the jet of air is going, you can go, oh yeah, I can see where it's starting to build it, and then correct accordingly. You do eventually get a feel for where the paint's going to go on though. That is what I'm after. Okay, so say I'm done for the day. I'm covered in primer, but so be it. I've already done the basic colour change one. I'll throw some water in there, backfill it, regularly spraying clear, so that's already done. Now, in with the cleaner. So, a couple of drops in the cleaner, brush. If you've got one with long bristles, try and get down a little bit, because you'll see that the needle follows from the back of the body through to the nozzle. Try and get it as clean as you can, and all along the outside of the hopper. You'll see where it collects. Yeah, it looks like it doesn't shift and then suddenly it all starts to come. Apologies for the background noise. Now here's the important part, do not send that through your gun, because there's all kinds of crap in there. So send it out. Bit of water. Out it comes. And now, a couple of drops of cleaner. point it away from yourself because this stuff's not very nice. So you put some clean cleaner through. Last of all, take off the back. Do not lose that down the sink. Needle out and have a look at the damage. So see, even with all that cleaning, there's still a little bit on there. So I have a Q-tip. And again, the last thing you want is to bend your needle. So once that's all good, what you can do as well at the front, now the needle's out, give it a good old clean. Again, this is prime stuff for losing down the sink. And then in there, this is your nozzle itself there. So the air gets sent around the outside, the paint comes through the nozzle in the middle. So give that a little clean, but nice and gentle because that is super delicate. Now you'll be able to see when you put the needle in the right way. You should see it there, comes to the nozzle. So no, not that bit, that bit. Goes into there. That goes on there. By the way, that is just a little stop, so if you don't want full range of movement, if you're an idiot and keep blasting too much paint, you can screw that down. Which means he says, there you go, look, you can change your range of movement. I leave it off. Sometimes I like that blast just to clear any nozzle clogs out. So nice and gently on there so you don't bend your needle again. You can run your airbrush like that. Some people seem to think it gives a slightly different coverage and whatnot. Just be careful. You will stick your finger on the end and try and do the backwash and stab yourself. I know I've done it. So that goes on there. Now that I know it's all clean in there, I'm going to very quickly send just maybe 2 drops through there. If you're trying to send water and it's not doing, you've probably got a blockage somewhere. It's worth taking it all back to bits. If you buy new nozzles, they come with like different size bristles that you can get for getting in there. I've had to do it in the past. See, also once you take your needle out, down through your hopper and into your nozzle end. And once that's clean, I don't like leaving it with cleaner in there, just in case it starts corroding seals and whatnot. I don't know whether it does, but so that's working perfectly. And adjust, keep going till it's dry, and that's it. You can put that away, ready to use next time. Hope that's of some use to you even. Cheers.